Namaskar, you are watching PMeVIDYA channels and NCERT's official YouTube channel. This is our live interactive session phone-in program of social science class 7th, and the topic of discussion is developing critical thinking in social sciences. So you also can connect with us through the telephone number 8800-440-559. We have two guests in this session in the studio. Professor M.V. Srinivasan sir from NCERT. Sir, namaskar and a very warm welcome. And also we have Dr. Radhika Menon ji from Mata Sundari College for Women, Delhi University. Namaste Radhika ji and a very warm welcome both of you. Sir, let's begin this important chapter because we have hardly, we are running short of time. So what is the critical thinking? It's a common question for both of you, and it is a skill, or what is it? So, and why it is essential for young students to acquire this skill, if it is a skill?
See, as far as many of us, when we are interacting with society or engaging with society, there are many times that we are ignorant, feel ignorant about something or feel confused about something. Critical thinking is a kind of an exercise of our mind, wherein which we systematically strategize and think about how to resolve a particular problem, how to come to a decision, and it kind of enables us to make decisions which are based on evidence, which are based on a valid knowledge base. So what it does is, it is a process of thinking where you are identifying what are the relevant information, you are identifying what information should be prioritized, what could actually go into making a decision about a particular problem that you are facing. So for students, young students of social sciences, it is particularly important because it kind of enables you to see the patterns that are there in society between social institutions and people. It enables you to understand the historical basis of it, what makes, compare things across time, see the continuities, see the discontinuities, as well as, say, for instance, understanding the depth of a geographical phenomena, seeing why something happens, and if it does not happen in the way it does, what would happen to all of us. Say, for instance, critical thinking is an essential skill for this current times, especially because we are living in a period where there is a flood of information, and how to make sense of this information is particularly important. Most importantly, critical thinking in social sciences enables us to look beyond ourselves. It makes us equipped to look at others' viewpoints, understand the contexts within which those viewpoints emerge, and also appreciate it. It enables us to move beyond our own limited views and see the views completely, which is very important for democracy. And in any democratic country, in any democratic society, it is for us to realize our fundamental rights, as well as to enable others to realize their fundamental rights. It is an important skill.
In fact, like I would say that the way critical thinking can be understood is that when we were children, whatever the elderly people have said, we have just obeyed and accepted and did whatever without questioning. The day we start questioning that why I have to do this, what is the reason, how it can be done. So you start questioning whenever somebody says something, that means you started developing the critical thinking sense in your mind. Actually, critical thinking is also not something a skill like a driving, swimming, cycling. It's also a kind of attitude. For example, if there are some friends talk and everybody has a different viewpoints, and if you listen to all their viewpoints and you also put your viewpoints very politely, empathetically, that means you started on the way to develop your critical thinking abilities. And it's, in my view, it is very important for this juncture because after schooling we are going to go to vote. We have to choose our leaders. On what basis we can choose leaders? So in the case of India, which is the largest democracy, as Professor Menon was saying, that we have to be a democratic citizen. So it is necessary that we have to develop these critical thinking abilities. Actually, it's also necessary because it helps in, there are many problems. So if you want to find solutions, then there are conflicts also in the society. And for those conflict resolution purposes also we need to understand this critical thinking. So anything which you see, you go through, you analyze, you see whether it is right or not, on what basis you are saying it is right, on what basis you are saying it is wrong. So if you start probing, investigating things, that means it is critical thinking. It is essential for any child who enters to the school.
As you rightly mentioned earlier, we obeyed the things, without any question. But nowadays we say आजकल के generation के पास बहुत सवाल है, they don't understand हम क्या कह रहे हैं, but yes, they have their own abilities and they have their own capabilities, so they have in somehow I think critical ability thinking. So what are the different ways through which we can prompted, critical thinking abilities can be prompted in schools, because this is for class 7th and we are talking about the students of class 6th to class 12th. So basically they are the young leaders for us. So how we can prompt this in the schools?
See, for young children everybody has the capacity for critical thinking. It is just that it has to be developed. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. And the more you practice it now, the more you're able to transfer it to other areas of your life as well. Beyond, say, history, social political life or geography, the subjects that, say, students of middle school are studying. So first and foremost, of course, students you have to be clear about the concepts and facts, get to know more information. You also have to see what information is actually fitting in with the kind of criteria that you're trying to respond to. Say, for instance, are you responding to a question with the relevant kind of evidence, or are you just coming up with something but just because you have to say something? So the thing is being able to distinguish that. Also understanding the difference that, say, for instance, different subjects may have different sets of criteria. Say, for instance, history would enable you to have a historical sense of time, of how societies have changed over time, what kind of things have remained. And similarly, say, for instance, a greater understanding of geographical phenomena will enable you to understand, say, what would happen and what would happen to whom, if, say, a particular phenomena does not happen, or why it does happen. So it is a skill that can, by asking questions, and is one method. It is coming up with relevant facts and prioritizing the important facts systematically. That is an important element.
In my view, there are many situations. For example, if you want to play, you go to the playground. Yes. Whereas if you want to develop critical thinking, at least many of you viewers, you are all going to school actually, you can see your textbooks. So whatever the textbooks that you are using, they have an enormous scope for developing your critical thinking abilities. Right. If you are watching television, if you are watching mobile phones, whatever that comes in WhatsApp and many messages, they're all just kind of junk, and you have a lot of scope to develop, to see whether it is right or wrong, on what basis they are saying right or wrong. So the books and materials are the major source for major situations, materials from where there is scope for developing critical thinking. There is scope, or there is a necessity to use your developing critical thinking facilities. Right. The second source is that the classroom interaction. See, you're all going to school now, schools have started now, classes are going on, and you are there with your friends and teacher also. So whatever is happening in the classrooms are also the wonderful space for you to develop your critical thinking abilities. And third area is that assessment, examinations. We are all confronting this examination, and the examination is the third situation where you can find the critical thinking abilities are being assessed actually. So in all these three areas, the classrooms and the books and videos and all the materials that you are using as part of your education, as a part of your school, or the assessment. These are the three ways, in my view, I would consider as important situations in which critical thinking scope is being learned and assessed actually.
Right. Actually, as you rightly mentioned about as she rightly mentioned that we are in the age when the flood of information. So we have to be very careful, and the information we are seeing through any medium like print medium or maybe multimedia, social media. There is a lot of garbage type of news, but we should have some sense so that we can choose the correct thing which can help us and the society as well. So multimedia material you can say is a harmful or a useful, because nowadays we can see there are so many options which we are using in the education field. Today we have a webinar on the YouTube, how we can use it in the education field. So what they can do to develop this critical thinking in a positive manner. So this is I would like to know from you, sir.
See, the idea, please go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, please.
Okay. See, there will be, of course, a lot of information which is coming in from everywhere. But the thing is, critical thinking equips a student by asking the right questions, you know, and right questions means relevant questions,
yes.
and that only comes with practice. You know, say for instance, is it actually how true? Say for instance, you get a WhatsApp forward about say a particular monument, and then or about a particular geographical phenomena, saying that, you know, it may be a photoshopped image of a tsunami,
yes, yes.
which we often find coming through social media. So asking the question, you know, where did it happen? How? I mean, which is, I mean, trying to probe questions, you know, asking why again and again, till the point that you are able to have enough information to see if it is actually relevant. Is one particular way. The most important thing is, you know, is there any bias that particular WhatsApp forward or any message that has come in, or the information that you've got. Right. So identifying the biases there as well as identifying your own biases. That is an important part of critical thinking skills. And as one practices, you get better and better at it.
Right.
See, I would say that if somebody is sending something through WhatsApp or any other media, we have to make sure that what is the authenticity of this document. Right. Two sources as a children, like we all know that we have teacher is the first source in the classroom. So you can ask your teacher whether this is true. I came to know from my papa's mobile phone or mummy's mobile phone. So to what extent is true? So teacher is the one source. Second source, that if you are good enough to see the books available in the library, that's the second source. Third source is the internet. If you are equipped with the internet connection, it's also possible to explore and look for official authentic sources. Right. Then only we can come to know. Many such things are coming up. So we have to make sure that from where this come from and for what purposes, why they are resourcing. For example, let us take the textbook question. Actually, if you look at the way textbooks, how the textbooks are developing critical thinking abilities, look at the, this is the book of class 7 social political life textbook. So if you look at this textbook and social political life class 7, and you see I'm just showing you a page. I'm sure you are on the last month of your semester, like your class 7, and if you look at the word Jutam, so there is a story about the autobiography of Om Prakash Valmiki. So if this story is given in the textbook, and we have to also have to ask a teacher why this story is given in the textbook. Okay, there are many such case studies are available in the textbooks. So this is published by the NCERT, an official organization of the Government of India, and we have to make sure that on what basis it is true. Is it true? Why it is included? Why case studies are included in our textbook? To what extent it could be true? We also have to connect. Is this happening? For example, in this story of Om Prakash Valmiki, he was asked to sweep the classrooms and the playground. He was a very young boy of class 4 actually, and he was narrating his story. And one day when he was just sweeping the playground, and his father comes and tell the teacher that why you are forcing my son to sweep the playground. So this story is shown there, and we also have to see today in many schools, if there happen to be private schools, no child is allowed to sweep the playground. Why it happened in those days? What is happening today? So children have to also see their own existence, their own questions now. If you are happen to be in government schools or many in rural schools, even children also collectively, all the class children are taking the responsibility for cleaning the playground or cleaning the classrooms and so on actually. So children need to not only just read the story and memorize it, but also have to see in what context, in our context, is it happening, why it is happening in certain areas, why it is not happening in certain areas, on what basis. So we also have to know the hidden story of this case studies. So textbooks, and if you look at the other page of the book also, you can see how the child, who is also the one Shushan boy, that when he completed work, the person who with the coat, he just throw away the coin actually. He says that, see, I have done my work, and give respect to my work. So you don't throw the coin, give it to me by my hand. Right. So the person recognized it, and it was a very popular scene when in 1970s when this movie came actually. So when this is shown in the textbook, we also have to see what is happening today. Right. What is happening to the Shushan boys that were on the roadside? Is it happening same today also? Right. Why it is happening? Why people have this kind of understanding? So there are huge number of case studies available in the textbooks, and children have to go through those textbooks and discuss with the teachers that is that happening even today? Why it is happening? what could be the reasons, how it can be stopped, is it possible to stop? These kind of questions we need to ask in the classroom. So that's why that's how the textbooks provide ample opportunities for developing these critical thinking abilities.
So, Dr. Radhika, I would like to ask you one question. As you said that, yes, we are the largest democracy of the world. We have so many, people in the country. There may be conflicts, there may be issues. So, we need more thinkers so that they can, find out some positive solution for each and everyone. So, you have been regularly visiting schools, across the country, and I'm sure from some more countries as well. So, would you please share some of your experiences of teachers and students in same as such activities?
Yeah, I can think of a few instances. There was, I can give a couple of examples. One example is a negative example.
Yes,
in fact, one, and maybe we'll start with that, because a lot of us believe, say, the teacher's authority in the classroom. So, and we assume that what she's saying is the correct one, and thereby accept what is being said. The thing is, sometimes teachers, there was a student of mine who decided to enable the students to identify that there is a need to also ask, reasons why a teacher is saying something. So there was, she told a story. She was talking about Jhutan itself, so she had said that, she did not like the story, and then she began talking about the whole lesson. Interestingly, after the class was, at the end of when the classes the discussion happened, most of the students said they didn't like it. But the only reason was that, she had earlier said so. So the thing is, and then she said, no, I did not actually mean it. And then she started asking questions and asking the students to say, actually, did you hear, let me tell the story again. And then she told the story, and then the responses from the students were different. So, critical thinking is something that happens live in the classroom. There's a dialogue, and sometimes asking questions is an important thing. An important aspect, one very important exercise is to be able to listen to another person.
Right, agreed.
And listening and understanding what is the viewpoint, and also not being very rigid about your own viewpoints if you think that there is a better argument which is coming in.
Right.
So in one particular classroom, I remember there was this discussion which was happening around the health system, and saying that the people do not take care of their own health, which is why the health system is kind of collapsing. Now the thing is, it was kind of a polarization exercise where students had to take an opinion, they had to take a stance. Interestingly, as students could also move their positions. So they physically moved from one place to another, depending upon if they were changing their ideas. Now, very interestingly, the student who had actually said this statement, by the end of this discussion, decided to look at the child had many more reasons. Say, for instance, the child started talking about the health, because of the views of others, the health facilities in the public health facilities, talked of access to resources to have better health. Access to water as an important aspect of health. So these things only came in because of the dialogue that happened within the class, and the shift in viewpoints. It's not always about pessimistic thinking or critical, criticizing something. It is also coming up with creative ways of thinking. Say, for instance, there was this question in one particular classroom I had come across, where children were being asked, what if the river which is close to your house dries up? What would happen? Who would it impact? Right. And then there was this very live discussion. At the end of it, children were thinking of, say, what could they do to prevent rivers from drying up? And then the question changed to many other issues of climate and other matters.
Natural, I think, very important. I think the question, gave some chances to speak them, from their heart. Yeah. Because river will help them in so many ways.
Yeah.
Right. So, sir, let's move ahead. Would you please add something?
The idea that the critical thinking can also be assessed. And I'm just as an anchor, I'm just asking you, Rahul, can you just answer? I'm just showing the screen.
Sure,
so look
sir.
at the screen. And there are some set of questions I'm posing.
Okay, let me be your student today.
Yeah. Why is universal adult franchise important in a democracy? Second question, how can health can be made more affordable? Discuss. How do you think stereotypes about what women can or cannot do affect women's right to equality? From which country did Ibn Battuta travel to India? Among these four questions, can you just tell me which question is not promoting critical thinking?
I think the fourth question, because it is just a word, says from the country from which Ibn Battuta traveled.
You are
to
correct.
India.
So you are correct.
1, 2 and 3 should be the critical thinking questions.
You are correct. See, the idea that the one different way you can identify critical thinking is that critical thinking questions provide some opportunity for thinking. If you are just memorizing, memory recall and then just describing in the answer sheet, that is not critical thinking question. So if you are thinking for yourself, articulate in your own ways, responding to the question, that means there is a scope for critical thinking. So critical thinking also you can be assessed in other way. I will show you one more question set. Can you just see which one is developing critical thinking abilities in you? In what ways the media play an important role in a democracy? Second question, why more women are employed in Indian garment factories? Discuss. Who wrote the book Jutam? Fourth question, what is universal adult franchise? Among these 4 questions, which are developing critical thinking? Can you just
1, 2 and 4, I think.
Yeah, so probably in my view, for the first question, second questions are providing a lot of scope, because the third question, you just note only the author name, which you have to recall, and what is universal franchise is also like voting right, so you don't have much to speak on.
Question so 1 and 2 will give me more chance to think.
So
and to speak.
Yes.
That's the one way. And so critical thinking is not simply only to do with the classroom, only to ask question, it is also assessing. There is also, you can assess yourself by posing. So developing a good quality for a teacher, if you are developing a good quality question, and then if you are enabling children to think, collect evidences, and then respond, articulate in their own views, and then evaluate, make judgment, rather simply guessing if they are able to estimate. That means they are on the way to develop critical thinking abilities.
And they must develop their own confidence as well. Sir, we have actually hardly 3 minutes in this session, so one more question for both of you as we are conducting this session for class 7. So how can children become critical thinkers in class 7th or 8th or 9th? So this is the general question for both of you. Precisely would like to know.
Yeah, maybe I can just ask students one question. See, all of you are studying history, and there is something, this particular book in class 7, say between 700 and 1750, it is covering that. So what are the different sources that different chapters have talked of? Maybe you can make a list of it, and then if once you have made a list of it, can you see some patterns in the sources? Are there certain kinds of sources which were available in, say, between 700 to 1000 and 1100? Was there certain kinds of sources which became more important at another period of time? And do we have a different sets of sources? Do we have more manuscripts? Do we have documents in the recent periods? Maybe you can make a list of it and then find out for yourself.
Right. Sir, what would you like to add?
So the idea that the children, when you are reading something, you also have to learn to develop questions. Okay, what question, like how I can understand. So how I can understand much better actually. So best way to develop critical thinking abilities in you is that you start asking questions yourself actually. Whatever you read, do not believe as it is. Do not believe whatever they say, whether it is a textbook or whether it is a teacher, whoever is saying it, and you ask them on what basis you are saying this.
Right.
What is the reason?
Sir, we have received a question from YouTube. Sanjeet sent a question that critical thinking and analytical thinking, both are same or not?
In my view, critical thinking requires a judgment. In my view, critical thinking requires evaluation. Okay, and finally come to a consensus and your own viewpoint actually. Whereas analysis requires analyzing all the data, all the evidences, and then come to a conclusion. Okay, whereas the critical thinking requires questioning the intention behind the statement.
Right.
Okay. In analysis, that kind of very intensity will not be there. I think that's how I feel the difference between the analytical ability and the critical thinking ability. Critical
Analysis is essential for critical thinking, but critical thinking is also being ethical. It is also being able to identify the relationships between various aspects that you're between various criteria. It is also questioning the assumptions with which you are starting. So analysis could happen without many of these issues, but critical thinking requires many ethical considerations as well.
We can say both are interconnected.
Both are
yes. Analytical is essential for critical.
Right.
But critical is something bigger. than analytical.
Okay, Sanjeet, so you may get your answer. Professor M.V. Srinivasan sir, you came here with this important topic and describing in a very well way. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
And Dr. Radhika, you came here from your college and you share your experiences with us. Thank you very much for this wonderful session.
Thank you.
This wonderful session comes to an end now. Don't go away. Keep watching. We'll be right back with the next session on PMeVIDYA channels and NCERT's official YouTube channel. Namaskar.